Welcome to Highlighted, a Life Church Midweek Podcast. Here we're on a journey to look for ways to make our sermons more practical in our everyday lives, and we want to inspire you to live out your faith every single day, and not just on Sundays. In each episode, we highlight our sermons and our ministries to see how God is working in our church and through our community. And for the first time in a couple weeks,
Here we are.
So if you've been missing the show, if you've been, hey, I don't know what to do in my life.
Yeah.
There's a pit in my life now that I can't listen to my favorite midweek podcast.
Yeah.
We're back.
We're here.
We're happy. We're healthy. And I said that intro without messing it up.
Come on. I wondered if you practiced it.
I didn't practice. Maybe I did every morning. I wake up, I look right in the mirror, look myself right in the eyes, and I say, hey, welcome to Highlighted.
So where have you been?
A Life Church Midweek Podcast. Here we're on the journey now.
Where have you been?
I've been in Alabama the last couple of weeks. So maybe you came on Sunday and you're like, man, I've been missing my fix of Paul. Because Paul was not here.
Oh, everybody asked.
Everybody
asked about you.
Highlighted week 1 that I'm gone. Missed that Sunday. And then week 2 that I'm gone.
Yeah.
I was doing a couple camps and helping lead worship in Alabama. Always a great time. Always an honor to go and serve at those type of things. And
it's cool.
A lot of fun. But I'm even more excited to be back and excited for everything that God is doing here and now in this place.
Yeah, and we're in our season of faith, not just a series on faith, but a season of faith. And we've been highlighting all of the people who are a part of the Faith Hall of Fame, or as we call it, the Hall of Faith. And we came to a pretty familiar story this week that is still, though, one of my favorite redemptive stories in Scripture and one of my favorite redemptive accounts. I mean, outside of course, Christ dying for us, that's my favorite redemptive account. But this is probably my second because it really shows the importance of forgiveness and being able to face what had happened and to move forward with it and believe in a future where I can see reconciliation being a positive thing. And so we talked about faith that reconciles on Sunday, and we used the story, or we talked about the story of a man by the name of Joseph who went through some pretty crazy stuff, right? And he had these dreams, and people didn't like the dreams, and particularly the people it was about. And because they didn't like it, they put into motion a chain of events that actually led to what the dream was about and what they didn't want to happen, but they were glad it happened when it happened, just not before.
Yeah, and this is one of those stories, and I feel like all of these kind of character studies that we're doing in this series are like really familiar Sunday school type characters that a lot of times we often think, like I've heard this a million times, there's nothing in it for me anymore. Oh, I learned that story when I was a kid. There's nothing practical for me now as an adult. But when in reality, there's so much practicality and so much we can take and so much we can learn, even if we've heard it a million times before.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing I love about, this story is, we didn't spend too much time focusing on, Joseph with the colorful coat. Like that's the kind of the Sunday school picture that we get. Yeah. You get the nice like cartoon colorful coat and he had lots of brothers, and now they're the 12 tribes of Israel, blah, 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 blah. And we didn't really focus on any of that. But we spent pretty much all of Sunday just talking about this one piece of redemption and reconciliation, where we see the very people that threw him into the pit and the very people that said, okay, like, let's leave him here to die. No, we can't leave him here to die. Let's sell him into slavery, And it's like, at least they didn't leave him to die. But also, it's not like they took the best.
Right.
They should have just pulled him out of the pit and said, all right, I'm sorry, Joseph. Let's go home.
Yeah, psych, and just
let's
pull
go.
him out.
That was rude. I'm sorry. But it's
one of the brothers kind of wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't.
He did. He talked about it.
He talked about it, and then he didn't do it.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things where, they all did this, and then we look, way later in his life, like a whole lifetime has passed, essentially. And now he's second in command in the most powerful empire in the world at that time. And he doesn't have to answer to anyone except for Pharaoh.
Right.
and like trial after trial, thing after thing that got him there. Like he lived in a prison, and like he was respected in the prison. Like we didn't talk about that on Sunday.
He ran the prison.
But he was like everywhere in his life, he kind of had this authority, right?
Yeah.
Over his brothers with his dad. Like he had this favoritism. And then he gets sold into Potiphar's house. He has this favoritism. He's over everything. Oh, Potiphar's wife accuses him of this. He throws him in jail. He's in jail and he has this favoritism. And then he gets out of jail. And in the whole empire of Egypt, he has this kind of favoritism. And then up into this moment, he's kind of living this out. And he has every right to be like, kill them.
Right.
Like, I don't know why why are you even bothering?
Yeah.
Like, let me make a mockery of you. But he didn't.
Yeah.
And like, or even if he compromised a little, all right, Judah, you pulled me out of the pit. You get some food. Reuben, you were always nice to me. You get some food. Hey, bring Benjamin back. He's going to get some food.
Yeah, he wasn't even there.
He's not even there. He's like, he's my full blood brother.
Yeah. We like
bring him back. He didn't even he wasn't even there to throw me in the pit. So like, bring Benjamin. You 3 are good. You other 9. Bye. But he didn't do that. And he didn't make a sacrifice of like, oh, I'm going to give some of you this and some of you that, but immediately he was like, like, this is okay. I forgive you. And what's cool is the pit that he was thrown into is like to catch like runoff water and stuff, and it represents drought. Right. And then later in life, he's there. We're there in a pit of drought. Right. There's famine. There's drought. And now he has the opportunity to then in turn turn the other cheek and say, I'm not going to throw you into this pit. Yeah. But I'm going to pull you out of it. And there's so much just redemption even in that alone, and understanding that like a lot of times we find ourselves in pits. Yeah. And sometimes that other people throw us in.
Come on.
A lot of times that other people throw us in.
A lot of times, yeah.
But now we have the opportunity to then go and say, hey, you threw me into this pit, but now I'm going to help you out of yours. Yeah. And even though, right, maybe he was a little arrogant with his dream. I mean, they called him Dream Boy, right? Yeah. There's the dreamer. And it's like, I don't know, like even, like that's not a bad, like I want to be called the dreamer. Like that's a good thing. But maybe not with the tone they were using it in. And like you got to sense there's some hostility there. Like even before he goes and he's telling his brothers what to do and all this and all that. And he shares the dream and they're like, we don't like this. And even through all of this hostility and built up emotion in the time that he like lived with them and functioned with them. And then you have these like 30 years where he's only thinking about them, if anything. Right? Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm done with these guys. Right. They left me for dead. I'm never going to see them again. I'm not even going to think about them. But he has all this time, and a lot of times this is what we do is we build up this kind of perception in our heads. Right. Of what really didn't happen or what they're thinking. And he could have chose to live in that bitterness and man, Reuben was only being nice to me because he wanted my coat. Like he probably took it. He probably took it and said, he probably gave it to his kids. Yeah. And he was like, I made this for you. No, that was my coat. Oh, man. Levi, he was always rude to me. He was always pushing me around and calling me small and younger. And he was always, forget him. But he didn't choose to live his life with that bitterness or to make up stories. And a lot of times when someone wrongs us, we don't really choose to reconcile. We choose to kind of, all right, forget you. Let's move on. Yeah, but not in a way that builds up the other person. Yeah, it's not actually moving on. We've just stalled that part of our life. Yeah. And allowed it to be a stopping point. And when we allow those stopping points, we actually have segments of life instead of living a full life, right? Because there's a part of us that gets stuck here. You know, if Joseph had gotten stuck there in Potiphar's house, he would have been a lazy slave, right? He's like, all right, this is where I'm at. You know, I love that we didn't really get to highlight this a whole lot, but from Potiphar's house to the prison and then eventually into Pharaoh's palace and over all of Egypt, he really does kind of have this idea that, okay, God, you have me where I'm at. I'm going to do this no matter what has happened to me before. I'm going to trust you. And he chooses that. And so one of the things we say here all the time is that we choose kingdom trust. And this is an example of what that really means. In fact, I would argue that you could do a
sermon series on Joseph's life on our 7 kingdom-minded core values. Like, you can look at his life and find each one of them. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, right? But because when you mentioned this earlier, he was a little arrogant when he shared his dreams. Like, it wasn't that he was just like, hey, I don't understand this. I don't kind of like this. Can you help me? It was like,
he was like, I had all of your bales.
Yeah, right.
They're all bowing at my head. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, don't tell me what to do.
Your parents are going to, right?
Yeah.
That even worse, because that
especially the family dynamic too.
Exactly.
With it's like, here's Joseph and here's Benjamin, and they have the mom that Dad loved.
Right.
They had the favorite. We're 2 of us. There's 10 of you. Like, we're special. We're favorite. Yeah. And like, look at my coat. Like, obviously I'm favorite. Yeah. Like, you guys are out working in the fields. Look at me and Benjamin. We're eating grapes at the pool. At the full pit.
The pit with water.
The pit with water in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
But it's so cool because through Joseph's life, you see time and time again, he has every reason to be like, all right, forget you, God.
Right.
Right. Okay, I'm not even safe in my home.
Yeah.
With my family. They sold me into this, and all right, I'm doing pretty well here. Oh, now this didn't work out, and now I'm going to jail? Are you kidding me? Oh, I'm going to do this good thing. I'm going to interpret these dreams for these guys, and they're going to rescue me. I told them, hey, don't forget about me. The next day, like, I would be so bitter.
Yeah, sure.
And I think Joseph has every right to be bitter in these moments, but he doesn't.
Right.
And he faithfully, with open hands, he says, no, God, I'm going to serve you. And even if I'm a slave in someone else's home, even if I'm in prison, I'm going to serve you. And then eventually, he's over authority over the whole kingdom of Egypt, which then in turn allows him in grace to reach out his hand to his brothers and his family and say, hey, like, I'm not just going to give you this food, but I'm going to bring you alongside with me, and you're going to come live here with me, and I'm going to provide for you. And it's this, he could have taken every opportunity there to be like, all right, here's your handout. Look, it's me, your brother. Here you are bowing to me. Told you.
Yeah.
Got you. All right, bye. Have fun. Tell Dad I said hi. But he doesn't.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, bring the family. Come live in this place. Like, there's more drought. There's more famine coming. And we're prepared for it. You probably aren't.
Yeah.
And in this place where he's been storing up and storing up and storing up, he's able to then in turn go and pour out and pour out and pour out.
Right.
And a lot of times we do that in our life, right? We check our checklist. Oh yeah, I went to church on Sunday. I got in my word this week. I read the Bible every single day. I talked to God for 20 minutes every day. Like, oh, I did all these good things, but if you're only feeding yourself and storing up and storing up and storing up, it's eventually going to go stale.
Yeah.
Right? If Joseph only stored up all the grain and all the water and all whatever they stored up.
Sure.
And he never poured it out on the people that needed it. It had no purpose. Just sitting in that vault or wherever in Egypt, in that pyramid.
Probably wrong time frame, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to paint a picture.
I understand. Yeah.
But basically, Joseph has all these opportunities to go and do the wrong thing.
Right.
With every, human right to do it. Right? Like, it's justified in our eyes. Oh, they threw you out. They left you for dead. They sold you into slavery. They did this to you. Oh, they accused you of this. They threw you in prison. Oh, even these guys that you were like, hey, don't forget about me. They forgot about you.
Yeah.
For years. You stayed extra years of your life in that place. Not just like, oh, an extra day. Sorry, Joseph, we forgot about you yesterday, but we're back now.
No.
But years of his life go by. Wasted almost, right? That's how we would see it. But God was preparing him in those moments to then steward the kingdom that he basically placed in his lap.
Right.
And said, okay, now I'm trusting you, right? You were faithful even when you got sold into slavery. You were faithful even when you got thrown into jail.
Yeah.
Now be faithful with this stuff. And I think if Joseph only held on to those things for himself, it wouldn't have had the same redemptive story that we see.
Yeah, faith that reconciles requires us to understand the providence of God beyond the process that we're going through, right? What we're walking through and what we're doing may be hard and it may be difficult, but God, and this is the thing, I think I said this on Sunday, God doesn't promise that it'll be easy. He just promises that He will make it good, even if it was bad. He doesn't promise it'll all be good. He promises that He can use it for good He promises that he can turn it to good. And so when we look at Joseph's life, it really becomes this picture of how we have to live. We have to, and again, we talked about this on Sunday, but we didn't really drive it home. You have to do this with wisdom. There are some things that you don't just let people back in your life automatically for, because there are some things that are different and that come across differently. But Joseph didn't just let them back in his life right away, right? They came and got food more than once. And he knew who they were, but they didn't know who he was. And he even goes as far to like put their money back in their bag and put like household things in the bag of one of the brothers. And like he's not necessarily testing them, but he is looking to see, okay, are they different people here? He uses wisdom as he does it. But there comes a point, and this is the part where we started on Sunday. There comes a point where he chooses to no longer look at it that way, and he begins to break. There's a softness in heart, okay? And I think that we miss that point so much with people, that we harden our heart towards people instead of softening it towards people. Joseph was allowing the process of everything that was happening to soften his heart towards his brothers. And so practically, it's hard to be mad at someone and upset with someone, so much so that you want nothing to do with them when you begin to look at them as humans and you begin to have the conversation with them. It would have been easier for Joseph to be like, yeah, my brothers are terrible people, if they'd never showed up. They came, they were looking for food, he recognized they had a need, and it began to soften his heart. It began to do something, and God used everything up to that point to bring him to the place where he could say, okay, I have to look at this differently. I have to begin to reframe the lens in which I see this situation. Because yes, they sold me into slavery. Was that terrible and rude and awful? Absolutely it was. Was it the wrong thing to do? Yes, it was. Okay. And also, imagine if none of that would have happened, right? I would be starving with them. I wouldn't be in Egypt having gotten all this food together. And by the way, Egypt wouldn't have gotten it together. It's not just that Joseph was able to feed his brothers. It was that all of Egypt would have died, right? All of Egypt would have experienced the famine the same way the rest of the world did. And Egypt was able to sell that food to people, because what good is money if you're going to starve to death, right? What good is having all this stuff if you're going to starve to death? And that's kind of the concept that brings them into. Well, here's the thing. That forgiveness and the way that happened, that reconciliation, would not have been able to happen without Joseph understanding the providence of God, without Joseph stepping back and saying, okay, I didn't see it then. I didn't understand it then. I see it differently now. I understand what happened. God was positioning me. And I think sometimes we struggle with that because we live so much in the here and now, and we do this with everything, right? I ordered something yesterday from Amazon, and it's here today, okay? I ordered something the day before, and it took 2 days to get here, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. The other thing took a day, and the other one's taken 2 days. Like, and I know that's a dumb kind of example, but you get the point. Like, sometimes we go through things not because of awful, terrible circumstances, but God is, in the providence of God, He is leading and orchestrating. And I have to trust, even when it's things that I don't think God ordained that happen, that He can still use those things. We sing a song now talking about how there's nothing, like basically nothing that we bring to the altar and put at the feet of God that's worthless and that's waste. And Joseph's time in the pit wasn't a waste. His time in the cart on the way to Egypt, not a waste. Time in Potiphar's house, not a waste. Time in prison, not a waste, right? And he was able to look back and say, okay, God, I don't think you wanted me to be thrown in the pit or the prison, but I do think that you want me in the palace. And I have to see that the process to get from the pit to the palace is what led me to this moment. And now I've got to make a decision. If your providence can lead me to something good, from something bad to something good, then do I have a responsibility to say, all right, what would you have me do, God?
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of that process too is it takes his dream, and it's this big identity for Joseph. Like, hey guys, I'm going to be your ruler. You're going to bow before me. And it's just his identity. It's just his thing. Like, it's like a guy that goes to CrossFit. Like, he's going to tell you that he goes to CrossFit. Yeah. Or if like
by the way, no, I'm just kidding.
If someone's like doing a special like vegan diet, you're going to hear about it.
Right.
Oh, I only drink almond milk. Like, you're going to hear, like, it becomes someone's identity.
Right.
But in the process, his identity became his calling.
Yeah.
And he was able to then in turn use it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if we're not careful, our giftings, our dreams, our vision can just become identity.
Yeah.
This is who we are. This is what we do. I preach every Sunday. I lead worship every Sunday. This is what I do. And then if we miss out on that process that God is taking us through, we miss the mark, and it no longer becomes about calling and who's God making us into, who's God calling us to be. How are we leading the next leader? Yeah. But then in turn it becomes, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's about us, and it's selfish. And I think a lot of times, even though it's not on our timing, it's not by our hand, it's not anything we can orchestrate ourselves. And sometimes that makes us mad. Sometimes we just want it here and now, like the Amazon package. But I think trusting God in these processes not only allows for reconciliation, but it allows for growth in your own heart too, right? And I think, if Joseph didn't go through this process, maybe he's not going to grow as much.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not going to be as close to God. Maybe they're all just going to live in their tents and get their cattle and their sheep and do their life and then die one day because of a famine.
Yeah.
But because of the process, God positioned him to be in a place where not only did his dream come to fruition, but he was also to help many nations.
Right.
Not just his family, not just Egypt where he's living, but all of these people coming and being able to live and move on. And we get so much of like the next thing, right? The next story of faith that we're going to read about is a direct result of this one. And I think that's the greatest thing, not the greatest thing, but like one of the greatest things is like Joseph didn't keep it to himself. His brothers didn't keep it to themselves either. Like they go on and like, obviously they wrote about it. Like it made enough news, enough waves that not only is it written about in Genesis, like we're going to go talk about this guy in Hebrews.
Right.
Like we're listing out all these faithful servants of God. Boom.
There he is.
Thousands of years later.
Yeah.
And for God to use that story even now, even more thousands of years later, and to help us understand that there's still hope. There's still reconciliation. There's still, even where someone has wronged us, even where someone might have even pushed us into the pit.
Yeah.
There's still redemption in that.
What leads to an idea that the Israelites were able to, Goshen, Egypt became an incubator, and they grew astronomically, and then they get oppressed, right? And God says, I hear your cry, right? I'm going to be faithful. We're going to reconcile this thing between us now. And there he is, and he pulls them out of Egypt, and that really sets the tone for the rest of the history in the Bible, right? All the way through Jesus now, we can go backwards to this moment of redemption, because he could have let his brothers die, and there would have been no tribes of Israel. Because he would have at that point probably identified with Egypt more than Israel. Those brothers would have ceased to exist. There wouldn't have been tribes of Israel. The people of God, as we know it from Scripture, would have ceased to exist. And yet, this moment of reconciliation. And so we don't know, and this is the point of that, we don't know what future thing God's going to do through current and present reconciliation. So the process that we've walked through, what people have put us through, if we hand that over, lay it at the feet of God, allow him to do the good, that process can lead to a present reality of positive things and a future reality of incredible things if we'll allow it to be how we live, which is the point of this whole season we're in, is transitioning our faith, right? And learning and growing from the examples that Scripture gives us and saying, okay, I need a faith that reconciles. And here's how I do that. And we look at Joseph's life and we see it in this one instance. You can see it in other places too. This one instance, you have a game plan for how to have a faith that reconciles.
Yeah. And like you said, I love that we're not just in a series of faith, but we're really stepping into a season of faith. And it's awesome because like we lack faith, right? We have a God who's infinitely faithful, right? Where we struggle trusting one another, or reconciling with one another, or hearing one another, or building with one another, or whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But we have a God who is infinitely able.
Yeah.
And to do abundantly more than we've even seen in the past. And like, that's what I love about this season of faith is it's not just looking back and saying, wow, this is how I build my faith in this way. This is how I grow my faith in this way. But it's really looking towards the future and saying, okay, God, we're going to be a people of faith because you are a faithful God. So I love this season that we're in. I love Summer House of Prayer that we're in. Hey. It's happening tonight, the night that this episode drops. But if you're missing it, if you're watching this on a Thursday or a Friday, or maybe it's the next week or whatever, maybe it's a couple months later. Well, if it's a couple months, every Wednesday night this summer, we're having House of Prayer. So if it's still summertime, if you still go outside about 2:00 and you just do a little heat shiver, and then you just back into wherever you are, or you get in your car and you touch the metal part of the seatbelt to your arm and it burns you a little bit, it's still probably summer.
Yeah.
And that means every Wednesday at 6:30, we're having House of Prayer, and also our other midweek things that go on. We have Kids Alive, Ignite Youth, and House of Prayer. It's my favorite service. It's your favorite service. It should be your favorite service if you're watching at home. And there's so much going on. It's July now. We're halfway through the year.
It's crazy.
We're today, July 2nd, is the halfway point of the year.
That's crazy.
So buckle up because there is a lot going on and there's so much going on. So stay connected. And as always, we love you and we can't wait to see you again soon.